Hello, and welcome to Social Collaborative Learning Theory, a comparative analysis of STEM, and traditional public schools. My name is Kareem Piper. Now, the forefathers of social collaborative learning theory are Dr. Albert Bandura and Dr. Dale E. Shunk. Dr. Bandura first postulated on the theory of social cognition or social cognitive learning theory. And this was then further emphasized and evolved into social collaborative learning environments by Dr. Dale Shunk. Now, social collaborative learning environment theory stems from social cognitive theory, as put forth by Bandura. Bandura asserted that social cognitive approach consists of a system of triadic reciprocal causations. According to Bandura, these causation elements such as action, interpersonal factors, i.e. cognitive, affective, biological events, and environmental influences all operate interactively as determinants. Shunk built upon Bandura's theory on reciprocal causations as interacting to stimulate learning, but goes on to place further emphasis on environment. Bandura postulated that human beings are neither driven explicitly by internal forces, such as chemical reactions within the body, nor by external factors such as environment. Instead, Bandura asserted that human beings are thinking organisms in which physiological functioning, including learning, is best understood as a continuous reciprocal reaction between behavior and controlled conditions. Before his assertion on the physiological functioning of human beings, Bandura stated that learning theorists assumed that learning could only take place via direct interaction. It is now understood that all learning that stems from direct experiences can also be attained vicariously or indirectly. Bandura asserted that human beings are not only capable of learning by observing the behaviors of others, but in this observation, human beings can speed up the learning curve and avoid the tediousness of trial and error. Further, according to Bandura, fear associated with a behavior can be overcome by watching others perform a similar task, as well as the punishments or rewards associated with that task. Bandura also theorized that human beings have a superior cognitive ability. Superior cognitive ability, according to Bandura, is the ability to assess external experiences and use this knowledge to postulate the effects of those experiences on the self, thus guiding one's behavior concerning future experiences. Superior cognitive ability, according to Bandura, affords human beings the capacity to display both insightful as well as foresightful behaviors. Bandura also asserted that another unique capability of that human beings possess is the ability to create self-regulative experiences. Self-regulation, per Bandura, consists of human beings' ability to create a stimulus that drive activities as well as the ability to produce the consequences for those activities. Self-regulating experiences allow human beings to control their behavior. Observation coupled with what Bandura asserted is a human being's superior cognitive ability, as well as the ability to be self-regulating, form the basis of social learning theory. The mediational process. As mentioned previously, Bandura asserted that human beings are thinking organisms. As such, Bandura postulated that human beings do not merely observe a model behavior and immediately imitate that behavior. Instead, there is a thinking process that occurs once a behavior is observed and is also based on the observed consequences or rewards attributed to that behavior. Then a decision is made on whether to imitate that behavior or not. The act of observing, thinking, and later imitating or not is called the mediational process and consists of four sub-processes. Those sub-processes are attention, retention, reproduction, and motivation. According to Bandura, One can learn by observation if one does not attend to. More precisely, Bandura asserted that human beings learn via observation only if they are particularly drawn to the essential features of the model's behavior. Bandura stated that models who display interpersonal activity tend to garner more attention than those who do not. Simply put, according to Bandura, human beings learn best from those whom they are attracted to consciously or subconsciously, or by those whom they deem relatable. Bandura also asserted that some forms of modeling are intrinsically rewarding, that they garner attention despite the model. An example of this would be televised news. The retention process. Retention, according to Bandura, is the ability to demonstrate the long-term memory of a previously observed behavior. Learning by observing is for naught if it is not memorable, and according to Bandura, it is particularly catastrophic when the model is no longer available to perform the behavior. For the long-term memory of an observed behavior, Bandura contended that there must be both visual and verbal coding. Further, Bandura insisted that both visual and verbal representation need to correlate, for example, associating a name of a person with a repeated physical/visual interaction with the same person. The same can be done for things and places. Bandura asserted that after model behaviors have been transformed into visual representation and further coded via verbal symbology, the codes can then be used for future reproduction of similar responses. The reproduction process. Bandura defined reproduction as the ability in which human beings use symbolic representations to produce overt actions. Bandura asserted that for a human being to demonstrate his or her ability to reproduce an observed behavior, they must put together various sets of responses following model patterns. Further, Bandura stated that human beings can incorporate the component skills learned from the observed behavior into new patterns of behavior. The motivation process. According to Bandura, for the overt performance of a learned behavior based on the observation of model behavior to occur frequently, a positive consequence is necessary. Bandura asserted that a person can acquire, retain, and possess all the faculties necessary to carry out a learned behavior, but choose not to base their action on the rewards and/or punishment associated with that behavior. According to Bandura, a model who wishes to elicit the desired behavior should repeatedly demonstrate the behavior, physically prompt the behavior when it does not occur, and finally implement a robust reward system. The evolution of social learning theory into social cognitive theory. Though Bandura's theory on social learning gives us keen insight into the process involved when human beings are deciding whether an observed behavior should be imitated or not via the mediational process, it does not offer anything in the way of how complex aspects of behavior, such as thoughts and feelings, affect decision making. It is for this reason that Bandura later modified his social learning theory to social cognition theory. Bandura stated that social cognition gives a more detailed account as to how human beings learn from their social experiences. Bandura asserted that social cognitive approach consists of a system of triadic reciprocal causations. Now, according to Bandura, within these causation elements such as action, interpersonal factors, i.e. cognitive, affective, and biological events, as well as environmental influences, all operate interactively as determinants. Bandura further states that perceived self-efficacy is but one of the many determinant factors of how human motivation when performing a task. Now, Skunk developed his social comparative learning theory based on the precepts of Bandura's theory of social learning. Skunk postulated that in providing children socially comparative information along with specific proximal goals, an environment in which students develop necessary skills and an adequate self-efficacy for problem solving is attainable. Schunk conducted an experiment in which low-achieving students in arithmetic received lessons in division and were then given opportunities to practice solving division problems like those modeled in the lesson. According to Schunk, the sample consisted of 40 children with participants in both 4th and 5th grades. Further, concerning the study's participants, Schunk asserted that the sample consisted of 22 males and 18 female students of varied socioeconomic classes. As the study's primary goal was to assess whether students who were lacking skills could attain said skills given the conditions of social comparison and proximal goals, the division problems were shown to the teacher/administrator prior to the study, who were then instructed to identify which students may not be able to solve the problems. Schunk asserted that a series of both pre-tests and post-tests were administered to the research participants. Concerning the study's pre-test, all participants were administered a self-efficacy scale test, a division skills test, and finally, training procedures. According to Schunk, the participants were randomly broken up into 4 groups with n equaling 10. So there were sample sizes broken up into smaller sample sizes of n equals 10. Following the pre-test, once the participants were broken up into the 4 subgroups, treatments were administered. Concerning treatment, Schunk asserted that one group got social comparative information, such as other students' performance on division tests. Another group got proximal goals concerning how many questions they should be able to complete on the test. Another group got both social comparative information as well as given proximal goals. And the final group was given neither social comparative information nor proximal goals. Following the post-test, Schunk analyzed the data, which in turn supported his claim that children who are given social comparative information as well as are afforded the opportunity to formulate proximal goals show statistically significant improvements on academic assessments than those who do not. Schunk also stated that the students' results correlate with prior research claims that students' intellectual efficacy as well as self-efficacy correlates to their performance on academic tests. Social cognitive theory and its many applications. We have thus far discussed topics such as the genesis of social learning theory, the mediational process that comprise social learning theory, the evolution of social learning theory into social cognitive theory, and finally, social comparative information or social comparative learning. Now we will take a look at how the theoretical framework of social cognition has been used by other researchers, and finally, how the theory of social collaborative learning environments will be applied to this researcher's study. Social cognitive theory and the workplace, or workplace behavior, rather. Like many theories, the scope of social cognitive theory is vast and its application and research inexhaustible. Most working professionals can relate to the experience of starting a new job. O'Kelly adapted social cognitive theory to explore the ways in which new employees go about learning expected workplace behaviors, fit into their environments, and then thrive in those environments. The use of social cognitive theory to better understand the phenomena mentioned above allowed O'Kelly to apply the precepts of triadic reciprocal causation, observational learning, modeling, agency, and outcome expectancies into the researcher's study. Social cognitive theory, executive function, and borderline personality disorder. To shed further light on the socio-emotional and cognitive patterns found in borderline personality disorder, as well as the possible relationships between social cognition, executive function, and clinical features in borderline personality disorder, Zagara, Valdivia, and Vilka designed a study that would evaluate the neurophysiological profile of borderline personality disorder patients and compare it with a healthy control group. Concerning methods, the study consisted of 20 participants, All were female and all had borderline personality disorder. Further, the researchers asserted that all participants were right-handed, hospitalized, medicated, and had not consumed illegal drugs and/or alcohol for 3 months prior to the study. Those participants who had a history of schizophrenia, psychotic disorder, bipolar, and affective disorder were excluded from the study. The mean time of disease was 11.95 years with a standard deviation greater than or equal to 6.73. Alrighty. Patients had a mean age of 32.44 years with a standard deviation greater than or equal to 11.82 years. Alright. The control group consisted of women with no history of mental disease. And all participants had the same level of education. Now, for the purpose of this researcher's study, and I'll just read to you guys my purpose statement. The purpose of this study is to conduct a comparative analysis on the learning environments of 3 high schools located in a South Florida school district to assess effects of those environments on student academic achievement. The demographics include a sample population consisting of high school seniors from each learning environment, and social comparative learning theory will serve as the study's theoretical lens. On the next slide, we'll talk more about the scope. Concerning the scope of this study, this researcher adopted the triadic reciprocal causation elements as put forth by Bandura. We discussed in length earlier. The reciprocal causation elements or variables to be examined by this study within a collaborative social environment are social collaborative environmental variables, i.e. science, technology, engineering, art, and math schools, or schools that implement those curriculum. Science, technology, engineering, math schools, or schools that employ those curriculum again. And finally, schools that are neither, i.e. regular public schools, or schools who do not seek STEM or STEAM designation. The other variables are academic achievement, i.e. student performance on standardized assessments, and finally concepts of self-efficacy or self. Now here we see the triadic reciprocal determinants within a social collaborative learning environment as I intend to apply it in my study. Social collaborative learning environment variables include science, technology, engineering, art, and math schools, or schools that employ those curriculums. Science, technology, engineering, and math schools, or schools that employ those curriculums. And finally, schools that employ neither, i.e. regular public schools, schools that don't seek to get STEAM or STEM designation and stick to the traditional curriculum. Academic achievement, okay, is another variable, as you see here in the model. Student performance in those academic achievement will be gauged by student performance on standardized assessment. And finally, the final link here in the chain, it will be motivation to pursue science, technology, engineering, math as subject areas, and students' perception of science, technology, engineering, math as well as a college/career choice. So the main issue that this study sought to explore was, and will be of course covered further in the actual paper to accompany this video presentation, was that out of all the undergraduate population in the United States, currently there are only 4.4% that are enrolled in science, technology, engineering, and math majors. And this then creates a huge problem for America and its goal to be competitive in the global economy, or at least teach students 21st century skill sets. There's an aging population in these fields, so this also creates a problem for future labor markets. So there's been recent phenomena of schools in the public school setting, in order to ignite student interest in science, technology, engineering, and math fields. to infuse art education in curriculums focused on those fields. This is done presumably to stimulate students' interest in the fields and perpetuate a system where they go forth and pursue those fields in college as well as career choices. This is an ongoing study, and as mentioned, the sample population will be predominantly off of 3 high schools, one of each falling into either one of those categories we mentioned previously. So at this point, I just want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation, and I look forward to your feedback. Thank you.